Welcome to 4,000 Weeks, the weekly audio dispatch from 4K Weeks and me, Spencer. It is week 15 of the year 2025. Let's see, what's going on in the world today? Well, not much. Man, I just laid a big old landmine out for myself and then didn't step on it. It's raining outside here. A little bit chilly for spring, but we will take it. Week 15 of 2025 has arrived. And hold on, let me just check real quick. Yep, turns out here in week 15 of 2025, you can still only really control what is in your head. And most of the rest of the stuff is 100% outside your control. So the first thing that I owe you is the dad joke of the week. The dad joke of the week, the setup is, why can you never trust atoms? Why can you never trust atoms? It's time for you to walk over to your 4K Weeks poster and fill in another square. Are you finished? I'll give you a second to do that. Do you guys actually do that? Like when I say that, do you actually, like, oh, let me walk over and fill it in? I wonder if the reminder is just me or if you guys use it. Anyway, so yesterday played basketball, had a really fun time. I play basketball twice a week in the mornings. It's pretty early. I get up at 5. And basketball starts at 6:30. And it's one of my favorite things to do all week long. Often like a Monday night, I'll be like, oh, yes, tomorrow's basketball, like literally out loud to myself. But I've been thinking a lot about my self-talk lately. And I think that's the reason I've been thinking about it is because of basketball. And I think that's one huge benefit of a regular competitive habit. And, I hope you have a regular competitive habit. I've got good friends who play volleyball on Sunday nights. I got neighbors who play pickleball, whatever is the competitive thing that you can do where you can have fun, but also be like, no, I'm trying to win. I think that helps you think about your brain a lot. And so, for me, I'm generally a positive guy, have always been. I like myself most of the time. My brain chemistry and my upbringing and a few key habits have all kind of conspired to have the inside of my head be a pretty awesome place most of the time. But at the same time, I am telling myself a lot of stories, always, because I think that's just the way we make sense of the world. We have to tell stories so that we can operate in this kind of maddening chaos. If you think about it, this is the science fiction. All of the fantasy and science fiction worlds that are created are just different weirdnesses, but this is really weird. And so some of the stories that I tell myself are that, this is the kind of game that I play. This is what I'm good at. I'm a power player. I'm a post player. I'm a forward. I shouldn't dribble the ball up the court. I should just go down there by the blocks and I should post up and I should set some screens. But all of those are just stories. It's just the way I've been being, not the way I have to be. And then, also I can get in my head a lot. As you can imagine, a person who does the things that that I do, I'm always thinking. There is always a voice in my head. In fact, my therapist, one of the constant refrains that she says is that I just need to be quiet, get quiet, let quietness rule for a little while. Because the thoughts are not always productive, even though I've made great hay out of some of them. And so I've been noticing other players. Sorry, this is going to be a big digression. That's not in the email. I've been noticing other players, people who I know not to be as introspective and as kind of always on mentally as I am. And they seem to be better shooters than me because there's nothing going on in their brain when they're shooting, right? They are just doing this thing. And it's a great benefit from having a quieter mind, for better or worse, if the quieter mind is better or worse. And so, like, for example, the other day we were playing 21. I don't know if you know how to play 21. If you don't have a full set of people to play games, you can play basically like everyone against themselves, driving to the lane. And if you make it, then you shoot free throws. And if you make 3 free throws in a row, then the ball goes live again. It's just a good basketball game to play with, 3 people or 4 people if you don't want to play 2-on-2. And I made 12 free throws in a row and a whole bunch of baskets in a row. And the only thing that was different is that I was trying not even to think about it. Whereas usually I'm like contextualizing and thinking about it. And I think all of that just kind of gets me in my head and out of the moment. And to really be a good shooter, you just have to be in the moment. And so I have, because of that, because of those thoughts, I've been interrogating some of the truths that I hold about myself as a way of testing them, and maybe finding ways that work better for me. And specifically with basketball, I have been, and this is hard because I've been playing basketball with a lot of these same folks for almost 3 years. I don't know how long, a long time, twice a week. And that's, you can get into routines and habits, some for good and some for ill. And so I've been trying to just play a different game than I usually play. And it's difficult. It's difficult even when I remind myself in the morning, all right, I'm going to try to play. I'm going to try to, handle the ball and drive to the basket, as opposed to just going down and to the post and being a big, strong dude. But it's worth doing, and I can already see the benefits of it. And so I was just thinking about that myself, and I was wanting to ask you guys, what are some things that you believe are foundational truths about you that are actually just ways of being that could be changed? And this can be true even when things are working for you, because look, I'm a good post player. I'm very strong. I get a lot of rebounds. I get a lot of putbacks. There are very few people who can out-muscle me when I get the ball down in the post. It's not like everything wasn't working and I needed to change it. It's just, I want to see a different way of being for a minute, then that will improve the overall player that I am. And I think there's gotta be things for you that work like that. And so what are some things that you believe to be truths that are just actually stories that you're telling yourself that may not necessarily be a foundational truth of your own personal universe? Anyway, that is the lead in to the email. Look, if you have a minute, and if you're interested in doing it, forwarding this podcast, liking the podcast, subscribing to the podcast, rating the podcast is really helpful. I wouldn't do this if I didn't think it was worthwhile. And if it's worthwhile, then I would like to share it with as many people as possible. And the easiest way to do that is for you to like it, subscribe to it, send it to a friend, review it, all those things. It's a super awesome way. It takes you 30 seconds. Super awesome way to say that you appreciate it. And I will really appreciate it. And if you do that, shoot me an email. Let me know that you did. I would love to tell you in an email how much I appreciate it. All right. Week 15 of the year 1849, Walter Hunt sold the patent rights to his invention, the safety pin, for $400. You think it was a good deal? I can't decide, because $400 in 1849 was likely a lot of money and might have been life-changing money to Walter Hunt. I don't know anything about the story, but it struck me when I saw that, wow, $400 for something that is just ubiquitous in our life these days. That it didn't exist before 1849. I don't know. It's weird to think about somebody inventing the safety pin. He was 2,749 weeks, or 52.73 years old. All right. Let's move on to the quote of the week. The quote of the week. This one was a little bit of a vibe shift from past weeks. It's from William James. To change one's life, start immediately. Do it flamboyantly. No exceptions. To change one's life, start immediately. Do it flamboyantly. No exceptions. That's William James. And I was thinking about this quote, and I mean, we talk about this idea a lot in this, what is this? In this business, in this podcast, in this newsletter, in these social media posts, whatever. To be yourself and to be, whatever is the most authentic, original, truest, most enjoyable version of yourself, to do that, because that's what the world needs. And I was thinking about this specific part of the quote with regard to do it flamboyantly, no exceptions. The older I get, the more things look the same. I don't know if you know that. If you're a maker, you know that. I'm going to sneeze, I think. Maybe it'll go away. Hold on. That's weird. I'm going to leave it in, though. Hold on. Sneeze, come. Pardon me. Man, I sound like my dad when I sneeze. What is it about becoming a dad that makes your sneezes the loudest thing in the entire universe? Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. Okay. The older I get, the more things look the same. And I don't know if you notice this. If you're a maker, you notice it. If you've if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or other hardware stores regularly, you notice this. And it's a new thing. It's likely something that has just begun um, in like a half a generation before me, right? Maybe the 50s. Um, I suppose it's a side effect of the Industrial Revolution having matured. Processes standardize, markets consolidate, people notice that that guy's doing it differently and it seems to be easier, so let's also do it that way. And then pretty soon, the only style of fence picket or baseboard trim or front door or I don't know, a million other construction items, the only kind you can get is one of the three options that Home Depot offers, right? I don't know if you live in an old house, Home Depot or Lowe's is often useless to you with regard to fixing the 100-year-old things that are in your home because they are custom and you have to basically tear it all out and replace it with the generic crap that one of the big box stores offers. And this is just I just have been thinking about it with regard to fence pickets and home remodeling because that's the stuff I've been doing lately. But it exists in every realm of commerce of our world. I don't know of the whole thing. And in fact, this has just occurred to me. I'm looking for a car for my daughter. And obviously we want it to be like a small or mid-size SUV just because all of the IIHS safety standards are against cars of the like size, right? So even if you get the teeniest car in the world with good safety standards, if it gets hit by a Suburban, all that goes out the window. Anyway, I have noticed that they all look exactly the same. Every single one of them looks exactly the same. I can't tell if that's a Ford Escape or a Hyundai blah 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 or a Kia Santa Fe. I don't know. They all look exactly the same. And it's boring. It's super duper boring. And that is actually one of the reasons that Europe is so fun to visit for Americans because they have like hundreds and hundreds more years of custom one-off buildings and they, respect the history of it. So they repair things in a certain way so that they match. And so like every place you go in Europe, you're surrounded by one-off custom building things where like every carpenter and every stonemason had their own solution or every region had their own solution for doing it for hundreds of years before the Industrial Revolution. And so it's just more interesting to look at. There's just more visual distinction there. And so, live your life flamboyantly, true to yourself. Like instead of living an off-the-shelf life where your house looks the same as all of the suburban people that you are trying in vain to not care about trying to impress, right? Have the courage to listen to your actual preferences and then do the work and take the time to do it differently. And that's less efficient, but it certainly is more fulfilling and more interesting. And it's more interesting for you and it's more interesting for the rest of us. And so obviously, don't waste another second not being true to yourself and living the life that you want to live. And, I'm not saying jump off cliffs, but I am saying don't worry about all of the fears that immediately pop up in your head when you think about doing something differently than the rest of the herd. Because a lot of that fear is vestigial reptile brain fear about the nature of the world being nasty, brutish, and short. But we have largely removed ourselves from all of those fears. But you still have the amygdala inside you screaming, "Don't be different! Don't be different! You'll die." Okay, that's it for the quote of the week. What I have consumed this week, a whole bunch of podcasts. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week or if I'm about to mention it here in the next bit. I write so much for this newsletter in such a jumble that sometimes I forget what goes where, and if I talked about that 3 weeks ago or just now. Anyway, I have been building a fence in our backyard, and so I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I can just stick the earbud in my ear and kind of whistle while I work. So lots of podcasts, Cautionary Tales, The Old Man and the Wrecking Crew, spectacular episode about some bright spots of the COVID pandemic and how bright spots can be tarnished by human motivations. It's a really interesting story. And I can't say, actually, there's kind of a flip of the blame at the end of the podcast. And I agree with Tim Harford, engine, who's just doing and doing and doing and doing and doing. And that is awesome. There's a couple of, it got a little bit like, okay, buddy, your kids are awesome. But I don't mean that any disrespect to him. It's hard to be on a podcast and not become an avatar of yourself. But it was a very interesting podcast about how to be creative and how to live a creative life, and a little bit about how to raise kids too. I mentioned a second ago that I was listening to a lot of podcasts about the philosophies that underpin our historical, current, and future politics. Ezra Klein and his co-author, who I cannot remember the name of, and I'm sorry to him, I just didn't put it in my notes here, on the origins of abundance, which is their new book. It's on the Ezra Klein podcast. Super duper interesting. Super, there's that word again. Good discussion about what it's going to take to transition functionally into the future. I really, really liked it. I think Ezra is a very thoughtful and intelligent political commentator. He obviously leans liberal, but he's honest about it, and he tries to steel man arguments that he doesn't agree with a lot. And it just seems to be very honest intellectually, which is something to hold in high esteem these days. And then also the Scott Galloway podcast, he had Ezra and his co-author on to talk about it. And it's a different discussion about the same topics and much more kind of brass tacks with regard to how the world is currently operating because of the questions Scott Galloway asks. Anyway, that's what I've been consuming this week. Actually, a whole bunch of other podcasts. I considered just putting in all the podcasts that I listened to this week, but it was about 15 because I spent a lot of time working on the fence, and a lot of them were political. A lot of them were the daily, just news stuff. And I think, you don't need to be consuming news. It's going to seep in no matter what. You don't need to actively consume it. So I'm not going to share it with you. What I am thinking about this week. I didn't know what to title this week. And so I titled it The Big and Little of It All. Because I listen to a lot of political stuff. I mean, not political in the sense of like political parties and partisanship and stuff, but political in the way of like, how are we going to run this country and this world? And what's the best way for the most people to get the most joy and wonder out of this life? And I don't think there's much more to it than that, because I think that when people are fulfilled, they make things better, right? I don't know that we need to live for a higher ideal other than giving the most number of people the most opportunity to do the things that they want to do. Because when you're kind to people as they grow up and you give them opportunities, good things happen. So anyway, I spent the first half of the day that I wrote this email and most of last weekend, and then another day yesterday, replacing a small bit of fence in our backyard. So over the winter, the dogs had started to get out in this area. It was like a 60-year-old wire fence line. Actually, a perfect example of the standardization of everything. It was a very non-standard, clearly made on a mechanical machine, steel fence that had been grown into a whole bunch of trees, but it was clearly unique. It wasn't just kind of the same old fence that you've seen a million times. And so it had all, kind of grown into trees and was falling apart. And the dogs, it had turned into a semi-permeable dog membrane, right? So whenever Harry, one of our dogs, saw a bunny or a cat on the other side, he was able to pretty easily get through it. And our dogs, luckily, are not flight risks, but they don't mind wandering. And so that was a project that I knew I was going to have to do this spring. It was about 75 feet of picket fence. I had to remove all of the brush, lots of invasive shrub honeysuckle and trumpet vine and a few small volunteer trees that were like weaving in and out of the fence. And then a few big trees that stayed there and I fenced around. And so I had, when I wrote this, about 20 hours into the fence, clearing and digging holes and pouring concrete and setting posts and and likely 10 more to go. I think I probably got 3 more hours today of finishing up the pickets, and then it'll be done. Um, and sorry, I'm going to just digress a little bit. I actually, because I'm trying to live the truths that I speak here, I spent the extra time to use our CNC machine to cut a custom top in each one of the pickets, because I just didn't want to do a same old boring um, picket fence that everyone has with the dog-eared pickets, which are like the pickets with a little 45 on each corner. I don't want that same thing that everyone has, because I want people to see it and see something different, and I want to look at something and see something different. Sorry, this is a digression real quick. And then what was I? What was I? Was there another thing that popped in my head? Oh, two things. Okay, that. So first of all, I just wanted it to be custom. Why aren't there custom picket makers that are, reasonable and affordable? Why can't you choose from 20 different styles of picket at Home Depot? It's ridiculous. Number one. Number two, someone else a few houses down, actually a business that borders a house a few houses down, built a picket fence recently, and they committed what I think is the cardinal sin of fence building. If you build a privacy fence, so two things I remembered. Sorry. I I love our neighbors. I don't want to build up a huge privacy fence that says, don't look at our backyard, it's our backyard. But at the same time, I needed to keep a dog who can jump a reasonable height from jumping over it. So we built a 5-foot fence. It's hard to find 5-foot pickets. Everyone wants to sell you 6 or 8-foot pickets. So I had to cut them down. I think that's cool and kind. 5 feet, almost everyone can still see over, and we can still be neighbors, but my dog also can't jump out. That's the first thing. Second thing is this. If you build a fence, a picket fence, the structure of the fence, I think they're called stringers, the boards that go from post to post, face your yard. You do not build a privacy fence and put the neat side, the clean side, facing into your yard. It is rude. It is inconsiderate. This is a belief that I have. You can disagree with me. But I think that, like, if you're the one taking the initiative to close things down, then you look at the ugly side. Period. End of story. Okay. Sorry. Digression. But I was thinking about this fence. So I've got, likely about 40 hours into it when I think about all of the work that went into it. Cutting the pickets, taking the brush down, everything. And if the treated posts that I put in the ground last the maximum amount of time that Google says is reasonable, I just Googled it, then they'll last 25 years. And so in 25 years, I will need to replace that fence. I do plan on being in this house then. I will be 73 years old, which is just really difficult to think about. But, a week's worth of work every 25 years. Now, I have been enjoying doing this fence. I like this kind of work. I love making things quirky. That's the reason for the picket profiles on the top. That was fun to figure out. And then it was not fun to cut 175 pickets, custom profile. It was actually pretty cool. I set up a jig and everything, set a vector file up on the CNC software, and then just, put a picket down, clamped it down, hit enter, and then cut the picket out. Next one. It's kind of fun. It wouldn't have been fun to do it for 2 more days, but it was fun to do it, for an hour every couple of days. Being different is a reason worth doing in and of itself, but that's okay. It does. Sorry, I got a lot of digressions this week. So 40 hours worth of work, and I have been enjoying it. I like this kind of work, right? I like to build things and do things with my hands. But, and here's the big thing that I was thinking about. It doesn't matter. The fence doesn't matter. Sure, it will make our lives a little bit more convenient. But even if you ignore its ephemeral nature, even if you ignore the fact that 25 years from now, it's going to have fallen down and need to be rebuilt. It's not like I'm building a legacy or saving the world or curing cancer or pulling kids out of poverty or anything that you could say that is a valuable pursuit. And like literally while I was building this fence, in the 40 hours that I spent building this fence, real people in this world were getting their lives crushed by one bureaucratic steamroller or another. Some malicious and some just what's the word for something that is not, this has no agenda whatsoever. I can't, my words fail me. But there's lots of different kinds of ways you can get crushed by bureaucracy with intent, right? It can be like, yeah, we're going to steamroll this guy, or it can be like, oh, we didn't even think about you. Your hours don't matter to us, right? And so that's weird to think about, that I was doing this non-essential thing while people were struggling for their own actual lives. And I do believe that I and you and everyone else are our brother's keepers with a responsibility to one another. I believe that. That is one of my core beliefs, that I owe to you to help you when you have fallen, and you owe to me to help me when I am fallen. Now, I don't necessarily want your help, which is a whole nother set of things that I need to work on with my therapist, right? Like, it's okay to ask for help. That's where I fall down. Some people fall down expecting help before they even fall. You know what I mean? Like, we all have our weaknesses. But even in light of all that, fences still need to be replaced, right? Like, we have to have fences, right? And I guess if we have to have that thing, it's okay to enjoy doing it, right? I don't need to feel guilty because I'm not every second of every day trying to save the world. And I don't have a tidy bow for this. Usually I try to usually I tell a story because I want you to hear the moral. But I don't really, this is just something I was musing about. Is there a way to judge the value of how you spend your finite time? What matters? When I think about the question, what matters, it's like that whole scene, well, what is offsides in the show Ted Lasso? It ain't easy to explain, but I know it when I see it. And I think it's like you couldn't possibly draw a circle around what matters. But if something matters, you know it. And as an anecdotal case in point, these two kind of things are happening simultaneously. And so I can put them together in my head, because I was thinking about, as I was building this fence, boil this down. As I was building this fence, I was thinking, does this matter? What matters in life? What matters? I need to be doing this right now, but it doesn't matter. But does it matter? That's like, I spent like an hour just thinking about that. And so in the middle of this, I was deleting my voicemail messages on my phone. Now, I try to, when I'm sitting down doing nothing, make use of that time on my phone as opposed to waste it all. And I don't ever answer the phone, and I don't ever check my voicemail. So there were more than 2 years worth of voicemail messages on my phone. And so, like, I would look down at my little phone icon on my phone, and it would say that, like 253 or something. I can't remember what the number was. It was a lot. And so I realized I could just select and delete, right? And so I just decided I was going to do that. I was going to get, voicemail inbox 0. And I got back a year and a half, and I was surprised to find a few unread, unlistened to voicemail messages from my dad. And so if you've been here a long time, you'll know that my dad died just before Christmas a year and a half ago. And, I talk to his picture on the wall sometimes still, and I think about him often, but I don't really cry about missing him anymore, right? That kind of, the raw nerve of sadness is long since past. It still feels weird, but that wound is healed a bit. But hearing his voice was different. And in that surprising moment, where I was like, oh, look, a voicemail from my dad. And my wife was like, oh, wow. And I hit play. And then I heard his voice. And I was surprised by the emotion of the moment for both of us. That was all the proof that anyone would ever need that how he spent his life mattered. In spite of, and maybe even somewhat because of, all of the time that he frittered away doing the daily chores and replacing fences or mowing the lawn and driving to the store and doing all those things that don't feel like living, but are certainly life. And so, I mean, I suppose the lesson there is, who cares what you do with your time? As long as you are enjoying yourself, people will sincerely miss you when you're gone. And then occasionally when you can, you reach out your hand to help out somebody else. I just don't, I don't think I can provide a better answer to me, frankly, than if people miss you when you're gone, then it was a life worth living. You know, I write a lot and delete a lot, of course. And I wrote the line that not everyone can be Taylor Swift or Nelson Mandela, right? And I deleted that because I was like, that just kind of seems to pass judgment on lives. But it's kind of true, right? Like, we can all you live the life that you are given, right? Epictetus said that some are given the role of an emperor to play, and some are given the role of a house cleaner to play. Whichever role you're given, play it to the best of your ability. And so, if people miss you when you're gone, great success. All right. That's it. The dad joke of the week. Oh, I should say, I don't mention these often in here. The reward for reading to the end of the newsletter this week was this cool little video of birds building a bird nest in a birdhouse. So go to the email and look at that if you want. Dad joke of the week. Why can you never trust atoms? Because they make up everything. And then as I was editing the email, I thought to myself, I made up this punchline. I don't know if it works or not. Why can you never trust atoms? Because they're always splitting. I don't know. The other one's better, but I felt pretty good about making up a punchline to a dad joke on the fly. If you have a better dad joke, please log into the member group and post it in there so we can use it, and I'll happily give you credit. And then if you're interested in, seeing all the social media stuff that we post without going to social media, it is also in the member group. Okay. I hope you have a spectacular week. I hope you build all the fences that you want, or clear all the fence lines that you want. I hope you would find yourself enjoying it. Look, if you are doing work and you don't enjoy it, that's on you. I mean, some things kind of suck and just have to be done, but there's always a way to look and find the fun in it. Digging a hole can be fun. It's certainly satisfying, but can also be fun. And so if you find yourself doing work that you're like, I don't like doing this, that's on you. That's all internal. Find a way to enjoy the work that you're doing. Find a way to enjoy the work that you have to do, and then find a way to find work that you enjoy doing, in that order. All right. Have a great week.